from the Baltic to the Black Sea, 3 million German soldiers are moving into position to launch Operation Barbarossa. The most brutal conflict between two nations in recorded history is about to begin. On the first day of Barbarossa alone, 1,200 Soviet aircraft are destroyed in a single strike. Panzer units sweeping east are already deep inside Soviet territory. Chaos multiplies the catastrophe. Without orders from the Kremlin, Red Army field commanders lose control of their units. Dazed, cut off, surrounded, thousands of Soviet soldiers surrender. And at the height of the Wehrmacht's ferocious onslaught, Stalin disappears completely. He has every reason to hide from his people. Captured German newsreel footage shows Soviet frontier troops overwhelmed, a retreat under fire in total confusion. Whole formations surrendering. Hundreds of thousands of men entangled with fleeing civilians in scenes of biblical disorder. Yet there are some Soviet citizens who welcome the invader. To many in the Ukraine, the arrival of the Germans is a heaven-sent opportunity to throw off Stalin's yoke. Local women bless the Germans as they pass. Their menfolk destroy reminders of a man who has terrorized them for years. Stalin is above all stunned by the sheer speed of the German advance. Still the Germans drive east. They're at the outskirts of Kiev, Smolensk and Leningrad. Yet fierce pockets of Red Army resistance fight on behind enemy lines. The fortress city of Brest. The besieged Red Army garrison fights on and on, for more than a month until they are finally compelled to surrender. Hitler is so impressed by the tenacity of the Russian troops that he exercises rare clemency. Only one survivor is shot, the political officer at the fortress, Mikhail Fomin. The Führer cites the defense of Brest as an heroic effort, an example to his own soldiers. And he visits the fortress with Mussolini to acknowledge a hard-earned victory. But for Stalin, the defenders of Brest are not heroes. Years later, after their release from German capture, he will send survivors to the Gulag. The Wehrmacht's rapid, relentless advance seems unstoppable. Traveling at up to 50 miles a day, panzer divisions are already approaching the heart of Stalin's empire. And in the middle of July, Stalin is forced to consider offering the Germans a negotiated peace. While Stalin contemplates a way out of the war, he's drawing up plans to punish his own troops if they surrender. In a desperate attempt to halt the rout, he issues Order Number 270. All officers and political officials taken prisoner at the front are to be considered traitors. If ever they return to the Soviet Union, they will be arrested and executed. But the barbarity of Order 270 does not stop there. The wives of captured troops also face imprisonment in the Gulag. Now, with Moscow in range of the Luftwaffe, Stalin's own citadel of power comes directly under attack. German armies race for the capital. Elsewhere, Army Group North heads for Leningrad. Army Group Center makes a pincer movement towards Smolensk. Army Group South strikes towards Kiev and the Ukraine. The suburbs of Kiev, the beginning of August. In a vast pincer movement, German Army Group South threatens to encircle the city. During August and the first 2 weeks of September, the Wehrmacht encircles a vast area crammed with Red Army troops. 4 Soviet armies perish. On the 18th of September, the city falls. The Führer is now lord of all he surveys. It seems as if he is on course to meet his objective, to crush Stalin's Russia before winter sets in. Leningrad lies ahead of the Wehrmacht, defenseless. As September draws to a close, Leningrad is totally cut off, with no land link left to the Soviet Union. At the end of September, the Führer launches Operation Typhoon, the final drive along the road to Moscow. 14 German tank and 74 infantry divisions, a total of 1.8 million officers and men, take part in the offensive. Stalin has good cause for panic now. Facing a disaster that might sweep away the whole Soviet Union, they have one last hope, that the weather will save them. Sleet is turning to snow. The ground, frozen at night, is now a quagmire during the day, paralyzing Hitler's overstretched war machine. On the 2nd of December, German units reach Krasnaya Polyana, 17 miles from the center of Moscow. As the weather intensifies and temperatures plummet, the bleak truth is time turns decisively against them.
Two Army privates running the Opana radar station are suddenly startled by blips on the screen. 50 planes headed for Oahu. Immediately, they report the sightings to the Army Operations Center. They're dismissed as U.S. planes coming from the mainland. Aircraft designated for the second wave of the attack take off. Messenger boy Tadao Fuchikami picks up General Marshall's urgent cable for delivery to General Short. Commander Fuchida's first wave Armada is on course. Sleepy-eyed sailors and Marines, their breakfast getting cold, mistake the attack for some crazy kind of air raid drill. They think the planes are American. At 7:55 a.m., dive bombers hit Hickam and Wheeler airfields. Two minutes later, torpedo planes start their run on Battleship Row. 3 minutes later, Zero Strafe, other air bases, is Fushida's first wave of aircraft that hits the Arizona, which erupts like a volcano. planes burst 500 feet into the air. Yoshida's deadly first wave sinks the West Virginia. Now the Oklahoma, a battle wagon moored outboard of the USS Maryland, shudders with torpedo hits. She begins listing and capsizes. More torpedoes rip into the battleships California and Nevada. After the last bomb is dropped, the United States of America virtually has a Pacific fleet no longer.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.